excited about a couple. Primarily, I just delivered our cloud computing strategy to management about a week and a half ago. And that was a bit of an effort to produce because it was taking into account the entire enterprise. It wasn't just we're going to have 3 initiatives and bring them to the cloud. It's how do we actually create a governance framework for the cloud? How do we build and the opportunity to examine what initiatives are currently there today and leverage them? How are we going to coordinate the efforts of cloud across the department? And then how are we going to integrate it? So if there's 3 legs of the stool, it's transforming the business model to think cloud, to coordinate the efforts or broker it. There needs to be some element of who's going to broker and be the person that knows how to leverage cloud and work with the various entities who are thinking it. And then thirdly, how do you showcase that information? How are the dashboards and the operational excellence, if you will, that'll come from the cloud strategy? So the cloud strategy, again, it's a strategy, but if it gets some roots, I think that's a pretty exciting thing. 2, there's the STAR Metrics initiative, and this is an interagency effort that is focused on how and what dollars that are being invested into science, technology, engineering, and math are turning into things like patents and jobs and in entrepreneurial ventures, etc. There's the National Training and Education Resource, the learning platform of the future via the web that's been born out of our Office of Energy Efficiency. And that's, again, an effort with the Department of Education, Department of Labor, OSTP. These are the kind of interagency activities I get to be involved in as the CTO. And really, it's a facilitative role. It's a role of connecting with our mission, our national labs, to what we're actually trying to provide them in terms of IT. It's learning from them in the event that we can, in terms of how are they using tablet PCs or tablets or PCs, or what's the mobility plan, how can we bring that back to the headquarters. So it's a role that's like glue. You're trying to bridge the 2 worlds, mission to the IT folk or operational folk. And it's ever changing. So those are just a couple of the ones I'm working on. Well, as CTO, I'd say it's credibility to some extent. I have the credentials, I have the degrees, I think I have the syntax, the vernacular, but the CIO is the one that really is, I'm held high, he or she is held accountable via Klinger Cohen, whereas a CTO is still, I think, this burgeoning group, and they come in all shapes, sizes, and flavors. There's political appointee CTOs, there are folks like myself who've created the position. I'm the first appointed CTO, if you will, at the Department of Energy, and a lot of that is, as Chris was just talking, is what is your job here, and it's what you define it. It's a nebulous position. It was always part of the engineering scientific community, but with Anish Chopra bringing it to sort of the position that it is, and I think he's a Senate confirmed CTO. It's that credibility that isn't so much a challenge, but it's a day-to-day, not justify what your job is, but have an impact more so than someone who's currently in the C-suite. Challenges, no budget, no staff, and relying on your personality to bridge that divide, to work with contracting community at DOE, which is heavily contracted out in our national labs, and learning from them, but also hopefully being able to influence some of what they do in the form of commodity IT. A lot of the lab community is on contract to do specific things for the scientific and research community in energy, and they have specific tasks which they're supposed to meet, and whatever they need to get that job done is usually provided in the form of IT. It's tough when you're in the headquarters office where you don't have the tools, you don't even have, in some sense, the skills, but it's how can we help you? The lab community in years past, my understanding has been we got things covered, headquarters, CIO people. Just keep the lights on, keep the internet up and the PCs running. I think it's earning the respect, but also bringing something to that table of whether it's looking at a transformative commodity IT solution that they might benefit from, to just having a dialogue, having a seat at their table And we can't be so compliance driven with our entities. We can't just say, OMB's asking for this, please give us this data back in the form of a data call. It's, hey, how can you be a part of this response so that we can improve the way we're offering IT as a service, whether it's to a lab recipient or what have you. So it's being included in a 150,000 plus organization and feeling like you play a significant enough role that those entities want you at the table, need you at the table, and want you to lead once you're at the table. So it's that credibility and just, you know, the role being somewhat undefined, and relationship building. I mean, it's a coalition building job. You've got to build relationships and you've got to be a people person. I find it to be building relationships, collaborating. I don't think it's something you learn. If you can dialogue with someone, sometimes the challenge is, how can I even get this scientist to want to talk to me? Well, it might be because you figure out he's from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where my wife's from, or he's a Miami Dolphins fan, or he's a hoops fan, and, you know, or he went to Villanova, where I did, and I'm able to kind of draw that out, and then it makes for really interesting discussion versus keeping it all about business. You know, and you learn about people. You get to know people. You know who they are, and then you talk about IT and business process. That's easy stuff. So it's rewarding that I'm increasing or enhancing my network. I'm learning in the process about some amazing work being done in the mission area. You know, labs and program offices. But for me as a CTO, I love meeting people and creating a forum, which we do with our quarterly summits. I'm usually the MC, but we bring in the lab community and we bring in folks to speak about their accomplishments. And the only reason we know about them is because I knocked on a door, or I decided to make a phone call and say, hey, I read about this in a journal, or I read about it in Innovation Magazine. Are you the person behind the lithium battery that built the Chevy Volt? And that's just, to me, a walk in the park. And people like to tell their stories, so that enables this collaborative relationship, so that down the road, it's not as much of a challenge. So I think the relationship building skills are what I find most rewarding. 12. I would say clearly cloud computing will still be something agencies are migrating towards. I would hope more so or less in a compliance exercise, from a compliance exercise, and more in it makes sense, we've done our homework, we know how to acquire the cloud. I think cloud computing and acquisition will see a lot of talk next year in terms of, we know cloud exists, but how do we actually acquire it? How do we acquire it without running to the vendors separately, but leveraging GSA and the folks at the Federal Acquisition Service? I think mobility is going to continue to just be hot, hot, hot. We talked about it today, the bring your own technology to the office. It's one thing to have a mobile policy. It's another thing to say, well, are we issuing government devices, tablets, PCs, smartphones? Are we going to allow people also to bring in their personal device? How are we going to deal with that image? What's the security ramifications? So I think we're going to see even more iPads around town, or some type of tablet in the coming year. And I think that's going to lead to the telework discussion, again, beyond a policy for telework, but are we really going to embrace and create inertia to say, you don't have an office anymore. Your office is your house, is your car, it's where you're walking around town, it's hoteling. I think we're going to see a paradigm shift in how we do business in the next year. If we were talking 5 or 10 years out, I think it would be like, that is where we're going to be. So I still think some of the highlights in data center consolidation, cloud computing, they're still going to be front and center from an agency perspective. We have to reduce the amount of greenhouse gas effect situations that present themselves. But cloud is not something that happens overnight. I think we're going to be beyond, of course, what is cloud computing, why is it important to, here's how we do cloud, here's how you acquire, here are the savings we're realizing. Back to that three-legged stool I talked about, you would need to transform to any technology, you need to coordinate once you're there, and that's kind of the management. But then ultimately, what are those outcomes? How much money are we saving? Maybe cloud doesn't make sense, but at least we have to do a bake-off, do some kind of proof of concept. And that's what I think we'll see more of next year versus just the, wow, they're doing something neat with Google Apps at the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. There needs to be this concerted effort, and that's why the primary effort I've been involved in over the last few months is creating a strategy will hopefully get endorsed, and then we can go from there. You have your governance in place. We can kind of try to make it happen.